Facebook. We're here at the Rochester race exhibit here at the Apache Mall. And I want to spend just a little bit of time talking with you about this idea of race. So what we know about race is that there are no, or basically no biological differences between human beings, that any differences that we see in the variations of skin tone, of reactions to medicine, to food preferences are all contextual, and that over time people have developed in particular contexts to survive and adapt in very different ways. So if race is not biological, does it exist? And I would say yes, it exists. And unfortunately, we've had these conversations about race not being real. And I want to suggest to you that race is very real. However, it may not be what we think that it is. When we talk about this idea of race, we typically look at the demarcations of difference, right? So skin color, hair texture, nose formation, phenotype, if you will. But I would like to suggest to you that those are just optical illusions, barriers to authentic human relationships, and that we are much more alike than we are different. So from a genetic standpoint, there's no difference between human beings from one so-called race to another so-called race. There's no clear demarcation, no thing that makes one succinctly different. There's no subspecies of human beings. So what is this race? Now, I've heard that people have talked about race as being a social construct. And I'd like to say that's a great place to start, but that is not the end of the conversation, because it's even much more than a social construct. It is a governmental tool used to organize its people. The racial categories that we have here in the United States are not the same as they have in Canada, are not the same as they have in Brazil, are not the same as they have in Mexico. And I'm using Western hemisphere because it changes dramatically as you go to the East, right? So the categories in Great Britain are very different than the categories that are in Spain. So when we talk about this idea of racial identity, what are we talking about? A Ford F-150 is a Ford F-150 no matter where you place it on the earth. But we can't say the same thing about race and racial differences. So as we have this conversation, I invite people to come down to the Apache Mall in Rochester, Minnesota, participate in this exhibit, explore how and why our communities are organized the way they are, why wealth and income and poverty and inequity are important things to talk about, particularly because race becomes a proxy for having those conversations. This is a wonderful exhibit. I'll walk around to a couple of the pieces. We'll talk about those, and I hope to see you down here in Rochester, Minnesota at the Apache Mall at the race exhibit. This is Andre Koen, and let's take a look.